Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go.
Welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I am your host, Tracy Stuckrath. Excited to be here with you and to bring this lovely lady to you, Sarah Matheson. She is the co-founder and creative director of Hungry Harry's. She is a food entrepreneur, a food allergy mom. So, hello, my friend.
Hey, how are you? Long time no see.
Long time no see, yes. And just so you know, everyone, I met Sarah at the Fair Food Allergy Conference in Orlando. She was wearing her yellow shirt. She is the creative director, and so she is always on brand, which I love. So, hello. We are going to talk about making allergy-friendly easy. And let's actually talk, I'm going to get into how you got into this later, but when we met at the fair conference, Joel Schaefer, our friend, who's a chef, food allergy chef, and he made cupcakes for 500 people that were completely free of using Hungry Harry's series.
Yep.
And yep. So talk about that. How did that come about?
So Fair's food allergy conferences, there was about 500 people there. I'll step back. Thanks for having me on. Lovely to see everybody. So back to the Fair conference. It's the largest food allergy conference in the world. It's hosted in Orlando at the JW Marriott. And shout out to the hotel. They are fantastic. They are so good. And Joel very much nurtures them through the process of getting certified to be an allergy-friendly kitchen. So there are 500 people. You can imagine the matrix of food allergies, every type and combination. People with multiple, people with single. Obviously, people who are very engaged in the food allergy community, need their EpiPens, travel and just want to live their life like everybody else. Well, Joel reached out and said, I need to be able to make a cupcake for everyone. I went, oh, that's easy. Just use this. Here's our Hungry Harry's yellow cake, and he used the chocolate cake as well, but he used an egg replacer, oat milk, and rice bran oil, and then he made cupcakes that everybody could eat. There was literally one woman sitting at a table with tears in her eyes going, this is the first time I've been to a conference where I could eat the same as everybody else. And we talk about inclusivity, we talk about having conferences post-COVID, getting everybody together. Hey, how are you? Getting those communication channels open, making sure people can reconnect. Let's be real about it and actually serve them all the same cupcake. We're not trying to put people on the mood. We just want to give them chocolate cake. And if you look at some of the complexities that we handle in other parts of the world and in other parts of business, what we're trying to do within the food allergy community is make allergy-friendly easy. It is simplifying the processes with really good quality product, very good food allergy protocols, and then working with food service to say, yes, you can do this. This is the way you can do it. But it's by no means easy.
Well, it's not easy. And I mean, I was going through a menu yesterday. I have like 20 food functions that I have to pick a menu for an event that's happening next month. And just going through the appetizers. And yep. Nothing was coded, and I'm coding it myself so that I can pick the items that could fit my needs with trying to minimize, like out of the appetizers, I think the hot appetizers, 16 hot appetizers, only 2 were gluten-free. And on the cold appetizers, I think 4 were gluten-free. And I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. Why? And then gluten-free, dairy-free, they both had pork on them. It's hard. It's very hard. And so I'm glad that you have that there. And it's just, we were talking about on the show, or before the show, that the processes that we have in place, that the way we've always done things, get us stuck in the mud, right?
Yeah.
And we need to change some of those processes.
I think after the SEC event, we went to, you very kindly highlighted the IMEX conference, and we went to that. And that was an incredible eye-opener to me. So IMEX, do you want to give a quick overview to the IMEX?
So IMEX is a global conference for the meetings and events industry. There's 14 to 17,000 attendees there, exhibitors from all over the world. I think it's the largest show in the industry, and it's 2.5 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, of education and networking on site. And there's concession stands on the show floor to keep people in the show, right? But then otherwise you're going off site. So there's not really any food served, like we were at Cupcakes, but IMEX is a huge conference. And I was presenting a couple of different education sessions, one with my friend Thomas, which is the one you attended, on food allergies and just food safety.
Yeah. And remember we went to that breakout session, which was with all the meeting managers from all the large corporates. So the meeting manager for Google was there. So Microsoft, for all the major corporates. So I sat at a table and I was kind of having a bit of a giggle to myself going, only in America. On the right side of me, I had the head of culinary for the Super Bowl. On the left of me, I had the head of procurement for the Caesars Hotel Group. So multiple properties. They feed thousands and thousands per day. And I said, here, I'm just doing some research, food allergy. And they go, here we go. How do we solve it? And I went, it doesn't need to be as hard as it is. And they were saying 15 to 20% of everybody that walks through their door has a dietary requirement. Yet they can't find enough products to serve them. So, hey, here's that bunch of carrots or that little cupcake or that little container of fruit again. So it's like, guys, we can't put men on the loan. Let's do this a little bit. Also, the guy who was, I've forgotten his name, but the gentleman who does the Super Bowl F&B, was saying industry-wide 2023, 2024, it's all about surprise and delight and F&B. So they're the three themes. So if we're talking inclusivity, we need to be able to feed people the same thing. Something as simple as a cupcake. Okay? Again, sitting at a table, there were 10 of us. There were small cupcakes on the side for afternoon tea or afternoon break. And I said, so who's eating the cupcake? And then there was, I can't eat soy, I can't do dairy, I can't do gluten. And I'm just one table of the 11 tables in the room. And I'm like, wouldn't it be lovely if everybody at this table could eat the same thing? Something as simple as cup. And they're like, exactly. And how is it that something becomes so complex? So I think we need to do that and provide the food service industry kind of insights into how to make it better. And also talk to meeting planners and go, what we want to do is shrink the amount of time you're spending on that 20% of the guests who are requiring specific diets and accommodations. How do we make that process easier for you? Because they're the clients. They're the client.
Yeah, exactly. And Nancy posted up here in the Eating at a Meeting Facebook group that sounds simple, right? Just chocolate cake.
Yes. Just chocolate.
Exactly. Nancy, you're right. You're right on the mark. And kind of going through those menus, and I talked to the catering sales manager or event manager at the property that we're going to next month. And she's like, well, just give me the list of your dietary needs and we'll just make them all separate plates. I'm like, I really don't want to have to, you make 30 people separate plate because of what is being served. I want to be able to design the menu so that we can eliminate it. Or I've got 2 of those people who carry epinephrine EpiPens with them. And I do know this is the event that I had the kosher person last year, and she's an Orthodox Jew. So I will be ordering her food offsite, which is fine. But when I'm trying to figure out, I feel like I'm yelling, when I'm trying to figure out the rest of the menu, it should be simpler.
It should be simpler.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a quick thing. Put 14 allergens down one side of an axis and 14 allergens across the other and cross-tabulate that. It's 15,363 different combinations of the top 14 allergens, and you still can eat Hungry Harry's. So that makes us a mass market allergy-friendly option. First of all, you've got to start with broad spectrum, and then you go down from there. So we are free of the top 14 and we pre-test our ingredients so we can do tracing all the way back. We take samples of the mix and send them to a lab. So we know when we deliver the product to our commercial customers or to hospitals, to convention centers, to hotels, we know we're good, we're great. We continue to keep space.
Exactly.
Then we look at the next step is what is the production process like in commercial kitchens? As well as I know that they're busy, there's a lot of contact risk,
Right.
and unless they do things that are really smart, like what the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Dolphin Stadium in Miami have done, and establish an allergy-friendly kitchen where they have complete controls, it's a big step for them. So the JW Marriott did a full clean of their chocolate room and actually had that as their allergy-friendly kitchen. And then they separated one of their ovens and did a full annual service and clean of the oven and used that in particular. So they had control of the process. And that's worth doing if you've got 500 people. And instead of this division of those people eat that and those people eat this, the same thing goes to everyone. It's actually, though, there is a perception that it's more expensive because, I have to clean an oven. And I'm like, you've got to do that regularly anyway. Time it before this event. So you're starting from scratch, invert the problem, feed everybody the same thing, and have people feel included. Isn't that one of your corporate objectives in spending these millions of dollars?
Yeah.
It's just, if we think creatively and we are dedicated to ensure that everyone's included, we can solve that problem.
You just speak the truth. I mean, and everything that I reiterate all the time. And it is making sure that you're included. And our financial advisor was here the other day, and he has 2 restaurants, and his wife has non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And so she brought him in a bag of, he makes all the cheesecake for the restaurants. Yep. And so he's my financial advisor and he's a chef. He's like, there's only a little bit of flour in the cheesecake. It's crustless. Yeah. But she's like, here's I think it was Bob's Red Mill cup per cup. And he's like, when I make a batch, it ends up only being like this amount there. And he goes, and I taste test it because I don't eat that way. But I want to make sure what I'm serving is delicious. And he's like, nobody can tell the difference. And it tastes fantastic. Yeah. And so just listening to Alfredo tell that story as a restaurant owner and doing that is, and he's now got customers who are buying 3 pieces and taking them home with them when he's leaving. So he's tripling his money on that cheesecake. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was a very interesting story and that he shared with me the other day. Okay. So I want to get back to why this started and then what happened to get you to Hungry Harry's and what you did in some research that you did. So Harry is your son.
Harry is a son. So there he is. He's the little guy on the back of the pack.
He's now 17.
He's now 17. So we were actually still living in Australia, obviously in Australia. We were still living in Sydney at that time. And Australians go to Thailand like Americans go to Mexico. So we go there for a holiday or vacation. So we're in Thailand. Harry woke early. I took him to the cafe in the hotel. And then he said, cookie for breakfast. And I went, and then he started to scratch his eyes. And I went, oh, it's got a bit of a reaction. Shouldn't be anything. He's a 3-year-old. He was climbing a tree on the way here. He needs a nap. I'll take him back to the room. Rob was having a sleep in. Gave him a little antihistamine and I put him back to bed with Rob. And then I went, Teddy, it's my first day off in 2 years. I'm out of here. See ya at 5 o'clock. So I left. Anyway, so I then get this phone call about 15 minutes later and Rob goes, there's something wrong. He sounds like a seal. He's got welts all over him. He's struggling to breathe. And I'm like, he's having an anaphylaxis. So I did a text message back to the guy that dropped me at the shopping centre. And I said, there's $100 in this. Come get me and get me back to the hotel now. So we broke land speed records to get back to the hotel. And luckily there was a medical centre. So we went there and they went, yep, not a problem. Ambulance right for you. So note that this is day 2 of our first overseas holiday. And we're older parents. So Rob's sitting there going, is this parenting's like? And I went, yeah, this is what it's like. Anyway, so we're bundled in an ambulance. We went through the back streets of Phuket. We arrived at the hospital. And by that stage, it was full blown.
Yeah. And you know, epinephrine have been given you.
They gave him, to be honest, it was so stressful and so fast I know at some point that they gave, I think it was IV by the time we got to the hospital. It was so quick. So we got to the hospital and then we're under OBS for 8 hours. And then they say, look, there's been an allergic reaction. What is he eating? So of course I'm going back and I go, oh, it's the cookie. So I went back to the hotel and I speak to the chef and I go, what's in there? And he just went, chocolate chips. And I went, what else? He went, nuts. And I said, so why does this only say chocolate chips, chocolate chip cookie? And I'm like, so our world turned upside down. Not only did we have an acute emergency situation, like if the hospital had been another 10 miles away, we wouldn't be having it. But back in Sydney, and evaluated for all the allergies, and here comes the list: dangerously allergic to all tree nuts and severely intolerant to dairy, gluten, eggs, soy, and seafood. So this kid was on an elimination diet for close to 12 months to reestablish his system. We later moved to the US. And here I go again. I have to find all the products. So I'm going to Whole Foods and Mariano's and Jewel and all the different supermarkets to try and build up my pantry, and it's all over again. And I went, this is crazy. So we started to use Hungry Harry's in our own kitchen, and I was making Harry's muffins for when he was going to school. I was using recipes. And his lunchbox was consuming.
Okay, I want to go back to, so you started using Hungry Harry's. So you created the blend yourself.
I took a blend and I went, this isn't quite right. How do I make it better? And so I was like, how do I do, because just starting at scratch baking every day is a nightmare. So I created this mix. And I was using it for Harry's muffins. His lunchbox was coming home empty. And then I said to him, congratulations, Harry, you ate your lunch. Because food allergy kids tend to be very picky eaters. You're always worrying about, am I getting enough calories into this kid? And he said, no, I didn't eat my lunch. And I said, so who ate your lunch? And he went, Debian. And I went, Harry, why is a non-allergy kid eating the allergy kid's lunch? Oh, what? She liked it. And I remember, I was dumbfounded. It was just something so clear out of the mouth of a babe. And Rob was home. It was a Friday. And I said, if the non-allergy kid wants to eat the allergy kid's lunch, we've solved the fundamental problem. Everyone's included. And it was at that point that we looked at each other and went, we've got to do something with this. We don't quite know how big it is. Rob was running a CPG brand. And we started researching. We did a year of research. So globally, where's food allergy? Top 14 is the global standard in most countries. The US was top 8 at that stage. It's now top 9 after the FASTA Act. How do we find a clean facility? That took 3 months. How do we find an organisation or a testing lab that can verify that our ingredients are free from the top 14? That took a few months. That's a lot of testing. So there's all these testing protocols. The most important thing is we built our business to scale. So we have a facility that can produce tens of thousands of domestic or consumer or industry size packs, so 20, 50 pounds per day, per week. So we have scale in our back end. And that is one of the fundamental roadblocks to any of the free-from businesses, is your capacity to scale.
Right.
See so many, like last week, I was actually in Chicago and I went to the World Business Chicago Future of Food Summit. They have it every year if you can get to it.
Okay.
So there are food entrepreneurs, there are organizations, major CPGs were there, and all of the small food companies that are like startups like us, and they're going, 1, funding is a challenge, but 2, what's your production? Can you scale your production? And we're like, oh yeah, we're set. We've got a facility, a dry facility that can scale. We've got some other developments which we've also got to scale. And they're like, oh no, I'm still in a share kitchen. And I'm like, it's that build the revenues up to verify that you can get out of your kitchen. But how do you go to a stadium to say, oh, I can service an event with 10,000 if you're doing it from a shared kitchen? You can't. So there's this, then the scaling opportunities are there, but there's not the production facilities to supply those. And it's a blockage.
Exactly. And I mean, it does throw a conundrum in my head here about we're trying to get away from factory farming.
Yep.
Which then we're trying to get these free from foods up to the market into that kind of capacity. But we want to and with the free from market, you're going to make sure that those facilities maintain the structure and the credibility that they've been built on, because, and I'm sure that there's Amy's brand, that so a lot of these small brands are bought by these big companies, even in real life, right? Yeah. At least they're allowing them to keep what they're built on, right?
Yeah. So here's the problem. So here's the large CPG, the two issues that large CPG realize they have is food allergies and food waste. I was talking to the head of innovation for Mars Wrigley at this Chicago or Business Chicago event. And he's like, yep, food allergies are an issue. Yeah. They don't know how to solve it. Innovation is incredible.
If the doctors could solve it, we would be fine, but there's not
solution. Yeah, and I love everything they're doing in research, but literally, if you speak to the researchers, they're going to go, yeah, it's years away. Yeah. They're doing amazing work, but it's years away. But if you look at the structure of the food industry, you have, and I saw a graph yesterday or the day before, you have 8 major companies that basically run food, conglomerates. But it's very hard to innovate if you run a factory that's 6 football fields long producing tomatoes. So innovation is not going to come there because you're not going to change a line to produce a short run of a product, because that's a lost revenue for you. So you have to do it off the books. You have to do it in an innovation area. You have to do it aligned with small brands. And then you've got small brands like us who are incredibly nimble. We have years of global marketing experience, and what Rob's done and BizDev and what I've done. So it's like, yeah, we know what is needed and we've got the solution and we're building it. That there's this break between the big CPGs and what they're doing and then what us little brands are doing. So, and then it comes to, where do you get the funding? So the family offices, the venture capital companies was like, get $12 million in revenue, get to $2 million in revenue, and you'll get access to funds. And I'm like, but by the time we get there, we won't need you, but we need you to grow. So it's this whole chicken egg, big little, and somebody is going to sit down and go, hang on a minute, you mean you need allergy-friendly muffins to stadiums that seat 60,000 people? And so you'd need 6,000 people would need a dietary requirement. So that's 6,000 muffins, and they do how many then? Blah, blah, blah.
And I want to take your calculation and break it down for people who don't know. So in the United States, and this came from Chicago, the Center for Food Allergy Research, and 32 million Americans have food allergies, and that's 26 million of them are adults. And that is 1 in 10. 10% of U.S. adults have food allergies, and these are life-threatening food allergies, not the ones just randomly people think that they are. And so that's where Sarah got that. If you seat 60,000, then you've got 6,000 people that need it. All right, now I just got a comment here from Joan Eisenstadt. Curious about whether all hospitals are equipped to know allergic reactions and what happens then. If at a meeting someone has a reaction, has never go ER, or as noted, the distance to a hospital is far. Joan, you are right on the mark. Absolutely. Magazine has done a couple of articles on people who actually have been admitted to the hospital for anaphylaxis. They're actually admitted. It says on their note they're allergic to peanuts, and then they are handed a peanut butter sandwich.
The number, like I was talking to an investment group on the East Coast, and they're like, oh, we completely understand the importance of food allergy. I've been at an event where 2 of my colleagues were taken off in an ambulance because they were fed the wrong food, even though there's full disclosure. So the last thing you want is one of your guests off in an ambulance. Right. So it's that to have substantially more engagement. How do we get past that nexus?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I'm just going to go back to that too. Next week, my guest is a former chef at the hospital company, Martha Morgan. So we can tune in and find out some more from her next week too. But it really is breaking down that thing, breaking it down to figuring out how do we solve that problem. And it is creating foods that are free from the top 9 allergens or 14, right? And if you've seen in the news now, because the FASTER Act, which is when sesame got added, which was in 2021, it was voted. And then, beginning this year, or beginning January 1st this year, it became into effect. And there are now manufacturers adding sesame flour to their products so they don't have to clean the cross-contamination issue. Yeah, because their sesames are too tiny.
Yeah. So, and we've all been in commercial facilities. You think it's everywhere. So that's why there's distrust. And as I was communicating with some of the brands I was speaking to last week, the allergy community don't trust your products. They don't trust because there's so much inconsistency with food labeling. And we just like with Harry and nuts, I'm not interested in the risk. I don't want that in my life. I don't want risk in my life around my son eating a product and then potentially falling ill, because those anaphylactic reactions can be mild and they can be so, and Harry carries his EpiPen everywhere. Yay. But what we want to do is remove the fear, but take the responsibility. We don't want to be the alarmist in the room. We want to be the people feeding everything.
Exactly.
We now have the Protecting Children with Food Allergies Act, which was presented by Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth in January. And it's basically looking at all food service within government programs. So everything from WIC to before care, park districts, to lunch programs, any type of program where a government institution serves food, there has to be a reevaluation of how that food is served, how people are trained in reference to recognizing an anaphylaxis, adequate food for those that need it, and an understand of where the EpiPen is in the organization. I know we discussed this once before, that there are allowances for locations to have EpiPens on the wall, so they can get a script fulfilled. So again, when I'm talking to organizations, I'm like, so how do we feed people? We want to feed people. We just want to bring them all together, give them the same cupcake, and look at the smiles on the face. And then you're looking at your meeting manager going, yay. And then you're looking at the CEO going, oh my gosh, the person that is always on the side is now included. That's what there's that. And then the next level is the layer of care. So is there an EpiPen in the environment? If it's a large event, I know a guy that is a fireman and he does major events. So he works for an organization and he is the medical on site for large organizations at major events. And he's like, I've got EpiPens for everybody as needed. So how do we ensure that layer of care is there? Because
exactly,
everyone included.
Well, and then Joan brings up another question here is that, and then what are hotels equipped to do? What are we planners to learn what the nearest med facility can do and will? And Joan, so that's a whole nother challenge because there are 36 states that allow places of public accommodation to stock epinephrine. And I will provide that link as well. And that, but I mean, one, EpiPens cost a lot of money, or epinephrine costs a lot of money, $300 a pop. Unless insurance is covering it in some cases. It's cheaper in Canada. It's $100 for one pen. They do need to be renewed every year. But the other case in point with Sarah talking about making sure that the care is there is that it's great that your guy has EpiPens and he knows how to administer them, but not all EMTs across the country are trained to administer epinephrine, or are they allowed to carry epinephrine? So in their ambulances, so when you actually have to call 911, you actually have to say, hey, this is an allergic reaction. We need epinephrine. So they send the right truck and the right medical personnel to be able to administer it. So having a pen on property is the easiest solution, besides making food too. But that is the easiest medical solution on property to help mitigate that food allergy risk.
Yeah. And also the highest risk is to people who have never had reactions before.
That's true.
So you've got people like us who I know how to navigate the world. Harry's done 200,000 miles. He's been around the world a dozen times. So we know how to do that. I always select hotels and I do geo-target the local hospital. It's just a habit. And when he was little, and we went to Thailand 3 times a year and the kids are allergic to tree nuts, specifically cashews, I would always hire a nurse and that would be at the hotel. If you're looking at a conference going to a hotel, they have an AED on the wall, so why don't they have an EpiPen on the wall? There is also the Good Samaritan, which covers a majority of state, and I'll have to grab a link to specifically find which states. But it's like, and administer an EpiPen and not get sued. I would happily administer, I'm under the Good Samaritan Act. I am dangerously allergic to sulfite, so preservatives. So if somebody's eaten something at the table on the plane and I touch my face, I can have a small reaction or I can have a very severe reaction. So I'm very fortunate. I have 2 EpiPens. I do pre-board. But I was explaining to the passenger next to me and I said, you would want somebody to come forward and give an EpiPen because that means there isn't a medical emergency and the whole plane is not diverted and the paperwork and the delay and the risk to life. So let's ensure there are, again, EpiPens that people are trained and people feel safe to administer. That's the issue.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I did talk to the vice president of in-flight operations for Delta a couple of weeks ago and talking about food allergy reactions on planes or serving people with food. And so it is something that we need to be working on. And Leanne Mandelbaum from No Not Traveler has been working diligently on fighting for safe airline passage for people. And then there was a woman who is a doctor and went into anaphylactic shock on a plane. And so I will post those articles as well, because it's just amazing that the medical kits, the medicine required to be in the medical kits on planes has not been updated in 20 years. Yeah. So the FDA is working on that. All right. So Joan just posted, in the U.S., 2 hotels prohibit AEDs on prep. Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. And then I know in Europe, there's the failure to not respond. Tyra Hilliard talks about that, is that if you don't help someone who's in need, then you can actually get sued.
Okay. So we were in the UK just before COVID and we went to dine and they had a Natasha store. And here is an example of the menu that we were given that highlights every ingredient for everything we could eat. So Harry's like, I can eat this and I can eat that. And it's a spreadsheet that you can actually download this from the government site, and it is compulsory for any restaurant to provide their customer with a physical menu or one via a QR code where they can check absolutely everything.
Wow. Love having that available. And that's what anybody who's serving food should have, that in the back of the house, right? Or be able to give it to a customer. I did go to a restaurant one time and they did have something like that, but it was like 7-point font. And I'm like, you can't rate it to a customer. That's not right.
So, being real, most of the people at conferences are, 20 to 60. And we all have
Joan asked a question real quick, another question. And Joan, I did catch it that it's 2 hotel brands. I did hear that. But do food allergies come under the airline disability law? It differs from the ADA. Smart lady that you are. It is different. And actually last year, I think it was last year, Leanne, where are you to tell me the exact year? But it was the FAA, the Department of Transportation, did deem allergies as a disability under the Air Carriers Act. And so now people with food allergies are allowed to board planes early, to wipe down, pre-board planes early, to wipe down their seats, etc. Tell the flight attendants, tell the pilots, ask for food not to be distributed, create a buffer, but there's still a lot of pushback on it. But so yes, it is under there, but we still, as with everything, we still need a lot of work. And I will post a link to that.
I did an American Airlines flight, not last November, the November before, and there was a little resistance when I first got on. They gave me pre-board, little resistance, said, we can't do anything, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as I sat down, 2 flight attendants came up and said, I have a relative with food allergy, actually a grandchild. Let me know what you need. Oh, it was with empathy. And it's literally this much, and it's easy for everybody. But it's, again, how is it that you take the needs of a smaller community that could, and we don't want to have it as a burden to a larger community. We're not asking you to take it on. We're just asking you to press your empathy button just for an hour or two.
Exactly. Well, and that's a really important word that you just said is empathy, because on Monday for Food Allergy, to kick off Food Allergy Awareness Week, my friend Margaret Brower and I are going to talk about selling with empathy for this market, right? It's like how you can grow your business, whether you're an airline or a restaurant or a hotel, because you're empathetic to this market or to any market.
Yes, but also any type of sales process comes down to understanding the emotional need, the cultural need of a community. And unless you sink in with that, you're not going to sell anything. We're very invested in this because we know we had one of those near-death experiences. We service we service hotels and hospitals, convention centers. We have some schools. It's a small thing that makes everybody's life a bit easier. And for the food allergy parent that's dropping their kid off at college, it's like, okay. It's that release of anxiety or that sense of comfort. That means an enormous amount. But it does, to be able to provide that to everybody, it's a scaling issue. It comes down to that. And it comes down to simplifying the back-end processes for any food business.
It does. But it also, one of the other things it does come down to training and education as well, because there's so many people who don't believe in food allergies. And I mean, there was one person, where was I? It was just like, we're not going to deal with this. Or we don't believe in these things. It just drives us bonkers. We're not going to do this. And I'm like, okay, but why would you want to get sued, or why would you want to potentially kill somebody if you don't do this? And I understand if your facility, you're throwing flour in the air, making pizza crust, right? Yeah, that is part of your brand. That is what you do. Feeding somebody with celiac disease is probably not, or somebody who has a wheat allergy is probably not your marketplace, and you don't have to change because of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But be upfront about it, right? Yeah.
So there are certain organizations, we have spoken to very large scale, baking organizations, like massive bakers that have hundreds of locations. And they're like, we know it's a market, we just don't know how to deal with it. We know we are over time potentially going to lose a little market share, but we don't know how to do it. So it's working through the baking industry and going, how do we deal with it there? How do we deal with it there? Is it something that's interesting? And they all come back going, we know we need to do something. We just don't know how to do it. And we're not prepared to close a line to do it. So it is that opportunity. It's the supply demand, and where is the opportunity going to land? At what scale of product? And that's still something that's being sorted out.
Right. Joe, I would just want to post up this real quick. You are 100% correct. Invisible disabilities are not recognized, period. 100% agree with you. Because people don't know that they exist if they don't have them themselves. And I understand that's hard, but that doesn't mean that Sarah or I or you don't have one, right? And we need people to understand that in general. To what you just said, Sarah, I'm going to jump to the EU law, the EU 1169, which came out in 2014, which said that all unpackaged food served in the European Union must be labeled to the point where the consumer has information readily available to them of what the allergens are, kind of like that grid you just showed us a few minutes. Yep. Right? Yeah. And that made a huge change. And so they either need to label it on their menus, or they need to be able to hand us the information with that readily available. There was a small loophole in that, and there was a young lady named Natasha who got on a plane. She bought a sandwich at a airport stand, and if the food was prepared on site and then wrapped in plastic or bag or whatever and sold in the refrigerated section of that place and walked up, it did not need to be labeled because it was pre-packed or because it was packaged on site. Well, Natasha ate a sandwich and died on the plane because there was sesame in that bun. And now Natasha's law is in effect in the UK. So saying that loophole has now been fixed. So that brings me back to, okay, you just mentioned the big loophole. We need to figure out what that loophole is, right? And we're going to have to figure out that loophole for the FASTER Act.
Yes, for the Faster Act, but more specifically for this Protecting Children with Food Allergies Act, which has obviously got to go all the way through the process and become law, that it will fundamentally change the way all of the food companies who produce for food service for schools produce their food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it'll take maybe time. It's up to the lawmaker. Right. They all need to, at that point in time, they'll sit and go, okay, how do we change our processes? How do we make it better? And then it comes down to the people who build factories. There are not enough certified free-from factories. So Mr. Family Office or Mr. Billionaire, somebody start building factories because we need food. We need food.
Yes. Well, and that reminds me, just going to that school scenario, is that I was at a school conference, school nutrition conference a couple of months ago. Yeah. And I walked down the first aisle and the people are like, oh, do you want to try our food? Do you want to try our food? And these are brokers that are selling to these school nutritionists. And they knew everything that they could do about, hey, this meets the protein, this meets the fruits and vegetables, this meets the milk, things, but they could not tell me the allergens. One company in a line of 30 could tell me, and that was the Idaho potato brand. And I commend her because she actually had a sheet like that grid you had, and it said what the allergens were. And it was soy or milk. That was it. But she's the only company on that entire brand. And these are people that are selling food to small nutritionists, and they cannot tell the ingredients in the food. So that whole nudware.
Well, that's exactly the space where the Protecting Children with Food Allergies Act is going to impact. And it's not, we're not aiming to make it more complicated. We just want to keep kids safe.
We want to make it simpler.
We want to make it making allergy-friendly easy. We want to make it simpler because if we can make, and we're happy to do the work, if we can make it simpler, there is a better chance of kids staying safe and everybody being able to eat the same food. And there's a fundamental element of respect and to be able to sit at a table and eat the same food. It's,
Well, and then Lynn Wellish from Arizona posted, a dray would be for the food to also be kosher.
absolutely.
And even last time.
Yes,
When I are allergic to food. Oh my gosh. Yes.
I completely,
Yep. So looking for that kosher certification on the prepackaged food. Yeah. It's hungry kosher certified.
We're in the process of certifying. Yes, we're going through a pack design. So we're in the process. We'll be kosher, halal, we're vegan, plant-based, and then all of our allergies. So let's cover it all. And now, I know the response that we get from chefs in school environments are they're like, oh, I can do this. I was at an event where I presented to 125 colleges. 25 of them took samples. They represent a school population of 500,000 kids. So 500,000 kids, you're 8 to 10%.
Right.
So 50,000 kids across 25 locations need allergy-friendly products. And I'm like, let's go, people.
It's a moneymaker. Yeah. Right. Joan just posted in here, would not halal not also be safer?
What do you mean?
I don't understand that question, Joan. Can you rephrase it?
Yeah.
Like on Jeopardy?
So, yes. So basically, we're very highly spec. And we've gone to the trouble of that because, again, if you're broad spectrum, you get the most amount of people. So we do have organizations that use Hungry Harry's, but just have it gluten-free. And then we do have organizations that do use dairy when they want to do a certain course. And they state that on their menus. But they make it, it's soy-free and it's free from all the nuts and it's everything else. So chefs want choice. They want simplicity and they want choice. Food allergy is really complex and we're aiming to make it easier.
So Jen just clarified, meaning isn't halal also safe? Yes, halal is.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, because it's the back of the house that it's confusing in the back of the house trying to make these things fine. And it also comes down to, and then this just jumped into my head, my friend David, he designs and installs air conditioned units into hotels, right? Yep. And so I called him because there was a conversation with one of my clients I was consulting with, who's one of their consultant speakers has a disease, I forgot the name of it, that she can go into anaphylactic shock pretty intensely fast. Yeah. Consuming, smelling and things. And so we were talking about the air conditioning unit. So thankfully, the kitchen air conditioning unit is in a whole separate system than that of the ballroom.
Yes.
But if you're cooking shrimp or you're cooking something in ballroom C, they're on the same air conditioner unit as ballroom A. So the protein, and it literally is the protein, it's not just the smell of it, could actually go that way. Yeah. And hotels and convention centers no longer have kitchens to do kosher or halal. Well, and there's some of them that I know that the event that I did last year where we were during the middle of Passover and I had the person who was Orthodox Jewish, they have a kosher kitchen on that property, but it was $3,500 to open that kosher kitchen. So for one guest who needed that, it was not worth that expense to do it. So Jones, that was one property that still has one. I think one of the properties in Atlanta that I know had one, got rid of it as well. But it's like, and trying to find a kosher kitchen or kosher caterer that will be allowed to bring in the food. I would hope hotels have those in their back pockets already.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. For the kosher and for those allowances, I'm sure they do. It's how do you take this, what is an easier process because there are certified kosher kitchens, and how do you apply that to food allergy and ensure that they're there? I've looked at ghost kitchens, having ghost kitchens in specific locations, and all of a sudden I'm like, I don't want to run 20 ghost kitchens. It's just there's no scale in that. It's a hiding to nowhere. So how do we do scale? We work very closely with certification companies and with key chefs at key events. And when there are very high profile key events coming up, we're like, are you right? You ready? You got it? Yep, fine. So that they can provide choice.
Right. Exactly. Okay. We could talk. We could talk.
We just want to solve the problems of the food allergy world, and we want to make it easier for people. The frustration levels I've seen within meeting managers, like even on the bus coming back from IMEX, I was talking to a woman who works for a financial institution. And she's like, nobody fills out their dietary requirements because nobody's going to trust the process because it's never been better in the past. So how is it you get that trust back? And then you say, but yes, we'll be able to do this. And because the CEO's going, well, I'm gluten-free and I can't eat here. And then there is dissatisfaction. And it's 20%, up to 20% of guests that they're impacting the success matrix of the event. So it needs to be dealt with. So from everyone's included perspective, let alone for the trying to reduce any chance of any type of medical emergency.
Exactly. Well, and that's one of the arguments or discussion points that I have with doing this at events, because if I'm paying $1,000 to come to your conference, right, and it includes food and beverage in my registration fee, if you're not going to feed me, then you need to give me that portion of my registration fee back. But if you are going to ask me the question and food comes with it, then I expect you to do that. And if you don't do that, then I'm actually having to leave the conference, or my brain is not functioning well because I'm hangry because Sarah asked me this question but didn't feed me. And now I'm losing that relationship with Joan because I'm having to leave the event to go find food, or I'm not focused. And so I may have lost the biggest deal of my company business because of that. And so my company just wasted money to send me to this thing and then lost a deal because I had.
So it's like we're asking, we want to help solve a problem. We don't want to be the nagging Nelly. Let's solve a structural problem. We understand how how food service works. We understand how kitchens operate. So let's just schedule in time. And if we think that, please correct me if I'm wrong, that menus for events are usually sorted out 45 to 60 days prior. Not all the time. Not all the time. Okay. So let's plan in advance and let's throw a little bit more time and dedicate time to solving the food at those with dietary requirements to gain that trust, because that will multiply through the value of the event, because all of a sudden this person who's suddenly over there is now included. Everybody's having the same cupcake at a table and they go, I feel part of it. Because that's the whole aim, is we want everyone included. And that's what the company is praying for. So we need to be able to deliver it. So yeah, we jump through a few hoops, but we can do it. We've proved that we can do it. 500 people, all with food allergy, the most complicated matrix of food allergies you've ever seen. Everybody ate the same cupcake. That's success.
Okay. That is success. And it's full belly. Okay. So my final question is, in wrapping all of this up, what is in your perfect world, what does safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experience look like?
Everybody being able to eat the same food at a table, the same cupcake and the same cookie. But it's an acknowledgement of how is it that you acknowledge the differences, but bring everybody together. So it's that leading with empathy. Because take it from me, nobody puts their hand up for life-threatening food allergies. And Harry's now 17, he's like, I want to be known as the allergy kid. So, and even I know young corporates that won't even mention it because they don't want negative attention. We've got to get over that. We've got to lead with empathy and ensure that everybody can share the same thing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, because there's beautiful connections to be made. There's knowledge to be shared. There's business relationships that need to be developed. And food needs to support that, not break that down.
Right. Yep. I agree.
There you go. Thank you. My pleasure. Love to chat. Always love a chat.
And I will see you next week on the 20th, sometime.
Yep.
Going to the National Restaurant Association convention.
Yep.
Okay. So Joan Eisenstadt, Lynn Willish, and Nancy Sutter-Burns, thank you so much for joining in or listening to us.
Thanks, ladies.
How does everybody find you?
You can reach me at Sarah@Confidence, CONFIDENCE, foods with an S.com, or through the Hungry Harry's website. Yeah, and we're on Instagram and LinkedIn as well. We're most active on those two sites.
Okay, awesome. And I do on your website, I love that you've got Hungry Harry consumers that are sharing recipes that they're doing and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. We've got beautiful home bakers. We've got institutions, hotels, hospitals, convention centers, schools, kids, all online. We're moving forward, which is fantastic.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Okay, so everyone, my name is Tracy Stuckrath. This is the Eating at a Meeting podcast that you've been listening to. This is Sarah Matheson from Hungry Harry's. Check her out at hungryharrys.com. Next week is Food Allergy Awareness Week. I will have at least 2 shows. I'm working on 3 or 4, still working on them to come and bringing you some additional information. But check us out on thrivemeetings.com and on all social media platforms. And until next week, stay safe and eat well. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.